What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Otherworldly TCG Core Set 2025 review. This time, breaking down the Dark Element. My name is Brett Banfi, your host, Manifestable, and I'm joined with Tom the Boss Ross. Tom, how you doing?
Great, man. Doing good too.
Perfect. Let's get started. Yeah, so we're gonna go over a few reprints. Core Set 2025 has some throwback reprints, really excellent cards from all throughout the game's history, and then a host of new cards. So we'll kick things off with this beloved card, maybe my favorite card of all time. I love Fangs. This is a 1 mana 2/2 with Curse 2. I love the art. I love everything about this card. It's awesome to see it back.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Fangs. You can play it pretty much any time. It's going to affect the opponent's board at any time. Enable one of your champions to attack into it and live, or just very good against any cards with Aegis as well. Especially we saw with glow fruits. Things are tough to kill in one fell swoop. Just kill it straight out by lowering its toughness all the way down to zero.
Yeah, that blowout value. Love to see it. Next up, we have the Eben Rest. Eben Rest, one of the cycles where it's a throwback Otherworldly card. There's one in each element. This is 2 mana 05 with Otherworldly.
Yep. As long as it sticks around, it gives your other Dark Champions +2/+2. Yeah, this is the cheaper one of the cycle.
Perfect. And that slots in as a common, so they'll be floating around the draft board. They also work really well in multiples as they all see each other. Next up, we see the Lisbub, the 1 mana 2/2 with Psybeam. Where's Psybeam fitting into this dark strategy?
Well, we just saw Eben Rest as an O5, so you can side beam that and suck up all five of his toughness and get a 1 mana 2/7 that removed one of their champions. It's also good, with your own fortified champions. Pump something to a huge toughness, turn it around to attack, and smash the opponent for a large amount of damage out of nowhere.
Yeah, and we've been seeing some cards that have really pushed stats, especially on the toughness, the health. So, Psybeam looking like a great fit for those. The evolution of the Lesbub, the Lesalair, and this is the 5 mana 7/7 with Curse 2.
Yeah, small amount of curse for the price you're paying, but the stats are really big. The Lesbub oftentimes lives because it's side beamed, sucked up a bunch of toughness from something else, and yeah, you get a nice 5 mana evolution from just a 1 mana card. Pretty efficient
Yeah,
and not the worst in the world if you have to cast it on its own.
a nice way to round out the top end of the dark draft curve as well. Um, Next up, we see the 2 mana slotting in as a rare. This is a old favorite, the 3/5 provoke Obsidia.
Yeah, just a solid defensive measure for dark. Um, yeah, like we said, it's a reprint. It's just something that fills in the curve, fills out a role for dark with the core set here.
Yeah, and it's a little cheap provoke card. It does have some nice health, likely to survive. Maybe get you to that ability to evolve it into this Obsidiolith. The 4 mana 6/9, much better from a stat line perspective, also with provoke.
Yeah, it's quite big. I see a lot of 5/9s in provoke. This is a 6/9, so it's a little bit better than those. I think it's pretty efficient for its stats, and yeah, like you said, does evolve off of Obsidia pretty well since Obsidia is so cheap and it has that 5 toughness. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, another really great value draft card, and that is coming in at a mythic. All right, next up we see Ghoul Cub, 3 mana 3/5 with Soul Reaper 1. Talk to us about Soul Reaper in this format.
Yeah, so whenever any champion dies, this gets +1/+1. Could be theirs, it could be yours. Can grow out of control really fast, and the draft format in the core set has a lot of champions that make other champions, whether it be like ice cubes or glow fruits or afterlife Ontarias. So there's a lot of spare stuff just running around. So a card like Ghoul Cup can grow quite fast as the champions trade off in combat.
Yeah, and it comes down pretty early on the curve and evolves into the Ghoul Howl, 6 mana 7/9, also with Soul Reaper. This Ghoul Howl slotting in as a common as well, so likely to round out some top ends of the draft curve for this dark element.
Yeah, just a bigger version of it. 6 mana.
Yep. Yeah, and able to evolve quite quickly. That seems like a winning strategy. The Ghoul Cub will be floating around as well, as a rare. Next up, we see an old common favorite. This is a Shadow Gaze. This is a 2 mana 4/4 with Curse 2. Love the art on this, but it really slots in nicely at that 2-drop slot.
Yeah. Unlike Fangs, you can play this on curve a little bit more often. Sometimes you're saving that Fangs because you don't want to play it turn one because you're not in the curse, but on turn two, you're more likely to hit something. And probably the biggest thing you'll find is like a 5/6 at point in time, which you can make a a 3/4. So it matches up well. Your 4/4 against their 3/4. Yeah, I like it just all around.
Yeah, flexible value, and also, like you said, if you are hitting a 5/6, dropping it into a 3/4, you're oftentimes two for wanting after that ability as well, but you get the flexibility. So, okay, moving on to the next one. This is a rare Mysticonda, 5 mana 7/7 with Raised Dead 6, one of the old favorites from the Reanimator strategy. Mysticonda is back.
Yeah, just one of the most played Raised Dead cards in the past. Raised Dead, of course, is bring the top champion from your graveyard immediately back into play at the cost of 6 life. Um, can't do it when you're 6 life or below, but it's usually worthwhile to do since you're getting such a immediate tempo value just by getting a 7/7 for 5 mana and whatever your best or whatever your top card is. Maybe your best card, maybe a small card, but it really doesn't matter that much. But always aim to get your best creature on top when you can.
Yeah, and it also shows the difference between, the more, club players and the pro players, because the pro players are always able to figure out exactly how to stack their graveyard in such a way as to get the max value. All right, moving on to the next card, we see Bog at 2 mana. This is an old favorite as well. One of the best vanilla creatures of all time, 5/6. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And yeah, Bog is back, so good to see that.
Yeah, Bog is super solid. It was one of my favorite pack one, pick one picks in Generation 4. But it's really you can't go wrong with it. Also showed up a lot in Standard. It's just solid to do on turn two. That six toughness often lives, and it's really the evolution chain that makes it like even better.
Yeah, and sometimes it's one card in the evolution chain that really sets it apart, but in this case it's not. We kick things off here with the first part of the evolution chain, that is Booger at 4 mana 6/6 with Hex. So Hex, can you talk a little bit about that before we get to the next part of the evolution chain?
Yeah, Hex is basically unconditional removal as long as you can target it. It basically just deletes that card and summons a champion from all the game's history that I believe is 3 toughness or less.
Hmm.
It could be just anything, but it has to be a vanilla creature. Any vanilla creature with 3 toughness or less it can make. So it can make a 1/1 or it can make something bigger like a 3/3 or even bigger than that. But those are less common. Basically,
Yeah.
you're just getting rid of an important card of theirs and giving them something much weaker.
Yeah, sometimes they do get a little bit of value out of that with a really, high roll on a champion that they get, but either way, you oftentimes only really care about that getting the ability off the board. Like sometimes it's a Soul Reaper or, some of these other really powerful abilities. All right, and then that takes us to the next part of this and the last part of the evolution line. This is the Blight Ooze. Important because it can also be time warped into off of that really playable bog. All parts of these evolution line are really playable, so you're never really sad to see one in your hand at any point of the game. And then yeah, we see it's a 6 mana 8/9 with Hex, so also has that unconditional removal. And importantly, we're gonna see that eggs are back, so even if you have a card like this a little bit early game, you might be able to cheat it out as well.
Yeah, it's good catch-all answer. Also, sometimes I even hex my own champions. Like if I have a 1/1 that's kind of sitting around doing nothing, I'll roll a dice if I don't have any better targets and see if it upgrades to something bigger than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it gives you a little bit of flexible value there. All right, and next we are going to be showing off the Apocalypse World Eater. 9 mana 9/9 with Soul Reaper 4, and this is part of a cycle. This one's slotting in as a mythic. What's going on with this card?
Yeah, this is our hero from the main set. It's a reprint from Generation 4. The hero itself is like whenever you reach your ninth turn, everything dies except for Apocalypse, and Apocalypse pops out of nowhere, no matter what zone it was in. which is pretty awesome because it has Soul Reaper 4. So for every champion that dies, yours or theirs, you get +4/+4. So it's going to be enormous, really fast.
Yeah, fitting name. And then that takes us to our next card here, which is the really cool, also part of a cycle, Mythic Belt of Snakes. 2 mana, 0/1, has the ability to equip a champion, including potentially itself with lifesteal, but it's also part of a unique new mechanic that was included with the equipments. And maybe walk us through the Belt of Snakes and talk about that.
Yeah, Belt of Snake is probably the most played equipment in standard. Lifesteal is whenever you attack with a champion and deal damage and it survives, it gets that much extra toughness. So it gets progressively harder and harder to kill and works really well with champions that attack multiple times in a turn. But the thing is, it just doesn't sit around as an O1 anymore. After you got your life steal on whatever target you wanted, now it can evolve into something pretty cool. Evolves into the
And
evolve form of a belt of snakes.
and that is the Sinistrap. Very cool card. Love the art, love the name, everything about this. This is a 5 mana 6/6, but as we just pointed out, mana not necessarily how this is coming into play. Maybe you are evolving it. It has the Curse 3 and also has the Life Steal. So talk to us at a Mythic about Sinistrap.
Yeah, some problem with lifesteal is on the creatures that have them naturally is well they have a window to respond to it, but now especially with that curse 3 you can shrink down their whatever you think will be most likely to kill a center strap. So a card like this is more likely to for you to get an attack in and get that extra 6 toughness every time it does get an attack in. But yeah, like you said, it's something you can evolve off of Belt of Snakes, but I also think it's just a completely fine card to cast at 5 mana. It is a must deal threat and it has immediate value when you play it. So I think it's all around pretty solid.
Yeah, and we talked about, that evolution line. Also really valuable to be able to time warp if the Sinistrap coming in off of the Belt of Snakes, which is really playable, but maybe you don't even need to run the Sinistrap because maybe you're just filling your deck with some time warps. All right,
Mhm.
next up we are going to be showing off the Bone Pup. This one coming in as a common. Really cool. Love the art on this. 2 mana 3/3 with cruelty. Talk to us, where is this slot in?
Yeah, this is one of the strongest commons. Cruelty is quite a powerful effect that says when it enters the battlefield, you or the opponent sacrifices their highest, sorry, their lowest power creature or lowest toughness
Mhm.
creature, lowest
Yeah,
health champion.
lowest health, yeah.
Destroy their lowest health champion. So yeah, if you whittle down their board and leave them with something just one big champion on their side, then this can just outright kill it. You don't have to worry about anything else. But you have to walk a little tightrope sometimes. Sometimes they fill their board with ice cubes and uh, you know 0/1s, 1/1s, or whatever, and it's not as good. But if you can get a game state where it is getting their best champion, then it's going to be great. And it's also just great on turn two. You'll trade with their bog or whatever that they played on turn two, and it's going to be upside.
Yeah, great stats. I mean, and the upside is really huge, like you said. But also, if it does stick around, it can evolve into this Bone Reaper at 4 mana, 7/5, also with cruelty. So yeah, you're just sort of playing that double cruelty game when you're playing this evolution line.
Yep. And it is a kind of a downward spiral for them because if the first cruelty hit them pretty good, they're probably only playing one more champion on their turn, and second cruelty is going to hit them pretty good. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is a cruel mechanic.
Yeah, so both, just like we talked about that bog line really working nicely with time warp and things, obviously this bone pup line working really nicely with that as well. All right, next up we see Toxes. This is a 3 mana 6/6 with Leech 2, so really pushed from the stat side. But what's going on with Toxes?
Yeah, so leeches at the end of each of your turns, they lose that much life and you gain that much life. So this is kind of important because it's a way for Dark to gain some life. But we've seen them losing life a lot with things like Raised Dead, and now they
Hmm.
have a way to kind of gain that back. So Toxins will be a pretty important card for the Dark decks.
Yeah, I mean it's very thematic too to what you're doing in the dark arts, right? Where you're sort of like life stealing and leeching from the the people that you bring into your evil laboratory. And also we talked about, this evolution line now, the Toxizzle comes in. This is a big rat with the 8 mana, 12, 10. So we're seeing some stats that are going above 9, part of the cycle as well. A lot of cards that are pushing that stat line. And also with the double mechanic here, we see it as a mythic with Leech 3 and also with Soul Reaper. So this thing is going to stick around, and when it sticks around, it's going to eventually kill you.
Yeah, this is has must kill written all over it. And even if they do, you do get at least one trigger of that leech. So for your 8 mana, if they have to trade off something big for it or use a big effect to get rid of it before it can trigger again, or before if Soul Reaper gets out of control, you still gain 3 life and made them lose 3 life. And they probably had to commit a decent amount to getting rid of this thing. But it will take over the game if it's just left unchecked.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it to this point until you just said that, but it's almost like a better vortex, right? Because you're always getting that leech at the end of the turn, just like you would always get a vortex. It's just an upside vortex. Wow. And maybe even would pair well with some, those strategies like that complement it with vortex. All right, moving on to the next one. We're looking at Puff here. Puff really cute, but also a little bit psychotic. This one's slotting in as a common 8/6, part of a cycle. It has the ability nesting. So what is nesting, and how does Puff fit into this strategy for dark?
Yeah, so every element has a common bird that has nesting, and when that dies, you create an O1 egg of its element, and you can evolve any dark champion off that egg. Or if the egg just dies itself, it makes a 2/2 bird of that element. So it's a lot for them to get through. Um, 4 mana, 8/6. They're probably gonna have to deal with a 0/1, not too tough. And then after that, they'll have to deal with a 2/2. But if they don't get rid of the egg, then you can bring out any of your huge dark champions with that egg.
Yeah, that's a really important part, especially as there's some, raise dead in the set, etc. So, being able to raise dead, bring that Puff back, get another crack at it, get another egg seems like really good value. All right, next up, we're gonna see a really nice 1 mana card here. 1 mana 3/3. This is the Grim Cub with Leech 1.
Yeah, a little one drop, 1 mana 3/3s. Those are kind of all around, and just has the dark mechanic of leech one. You always get that one drain of life, and then 1 mana is probably early enough to not die immediately if they don't have a play on their turn one or even their turn two. So you probably
Yeah,
get another trigger off of it, and if that happens, keep evolving up the chain here of bears.
Yeah, and that next evolution is the Grizzly. This is 3 mana, 4/8 with Berserker 4. So, you thought the Grim Cub, oh, he's just a little 1 mana guy with Leech 1. Yeah, he can linger around. All of a sudden, he becomes, a problem real fast. Love the art on this card. What's going on with Grizzly?
Yeah, Grizzly with that eighth toughness is quite a lot. Berserker is whenever it takes damage, it gets +4 +0. So it can grow to some good power and get in combat and attack a 4/4 or something. Then you're left with an 8/4 yourself and keep on keeping on. Then the Wraith Maw here and the evolution next is really the nice payoff.
7 mana, 9/9. And this card has a new mechanic called Mass Curse. We know what Curse does. What does Mass Curse do?
It curses everything of the opponent's side for 2. So it gives everything -2/-2 for the enemy. Which
Yeah.
is pretty good because it can sweep away entire boards full of ice cubes, entire boards full of glow fruits, or just really just whatever board they have is going to get decimated.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like a little mini retribution, but it also has the ability of shrinking that power down. This one checking in as a mythic, and the final part of the evolution for that bear line that we just showed. All right, next up, we're gonna take a look at the Alprintis. Love the name of this card. I want to meet this Al. This is a 2 mana 2/5. Has a very cool new mechanic. Probably my favorite new mechanic in the entire core set 2025. This is Conjure. What does Conjure do?
So Conjure in the set is a shared mechanic between the fire and the dark cards. In this case, it will create a dark card of at random from all of Champion's history. So for 2 mana, you get 2/5, then you get a card back, and it could be a very useful dark card. It could be one that you can't use at the right time, but it's going to be a card nonetheless. So cards are good in any card game. And at this price and at those stats, and you'll probably figure out a way to use that dark card eventually.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to replace itself. You're not sure what the value will be with that replacement, but also at a 5 health, it's likely to get some damage in before either dying, trading off, or potentially evolving. So we're seeing this next line, which is the Alorcerer, and this is the evolution of the Alprintis. 4 mana, 7/9, also with Conjure 1, and this one checking in as a mythic.
Yeah, kind of the same story here, just bigger stats, the middle of the road on this evolution line. You keep constantly evolving and keep constantly getting more dark cards. And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'm looking at this stat line and I'm just happy with a 4 mana 7/9. Like that's really great. That's
yeah,
pushed. Obviously, it's going to be powerful in draft, but then you're getting the Conjure 1 there, and then like we've been talking about with the Alprintis, with the additional health at the end of that for the cheap stat line of the 4 mana. You're also potentially able to evolve into this Almagus, and this is the end of the evolution line, 6 mana, 9/13 with Conjure 2.
yeah. 6 mana is not too expensive to put in any construction deck. 913, obviously big, and Conjure 2, just like it says, creates two dark cards at random and puts them into your hand for use later. So something that's
Yeah,
enormous and gives you like more gas in a tank.
it's also kind of fun to take a stab at the Conjure. Maybe you conjure complete garbage, or maybe you conjure the exact card you need at the time. And with so many really valuable cards, Psybeams, it'd be interesting to, as you get into the competitive play, like maybe you map out, exactly how many what percentage of the likelihood you'll get at least a Psybeam card, what percentage you'll get at least a hex card, something like that. I could see some ways to sort of like game uh the meta, and sort of like, when you're rolling the dice, at least you're doing it with some advanced knowledge. This one checking in at a diamond, the Almagus. All right, next up we see Uki coming in. Love this name. This is the 3 mana 7/3 with Psybeam, and yeah, he's gonna be a big boy when he comes down.
Yeah, that 7 power really goes along well with the additional toughness you get with the side beam. So hopefully you get something like a 7/7 for only 3 mana while affecting the board. But at the very worst, it can target itself too. So you can switch off that 4 difference between the power and the toughness and end up with a 3/11 for 3 mana. And that's just the worst thing you can end up with Uki. But it does have a ton more upside than just that.
Yeah, and those side beams really work nicely in pairs too, because you side beam itself, get that 3/11, and maybe side beam it again and get something, an even bigger one. Now you're talking about maybe like an 11/17 or something. And a lot of these side beam cards, even the ones that we've already previewed, they come in at a cheap slot. And even when you're conjuring, side beam is one of the most likely abilities to get off of a random conjure card, so it makes that conjure effect even more valuable. A card like Uki seems really valuable to me. All right, and now we're looking at a common, the Nether Chest. Love again the name of this card. 7 mana 9/9 with Hex, but this one coming in at a common, so much more accessible for people just looking for some random removal.
Yeah, it comes at a different cost than the other hex cards. Comes at common, so anybody can use it. It's a kind of a draft card to fill out your curve, fill out what you need, and of course with that puff with the nesting ability, it's a great card to hatch out if they left that egg unchecked.
Absolutely. Yeah, that, and it's going to be floating around like you said because it is a common. So you'll see if you get past a few early puffs and you can rely on, having eggs around, then maybe you start snatching up these late passing nether chests, etc. All right, and next up we see Squeak. Squeak's coming in at a 3 mana 6/4 with steel. So this one very classic dark vibes, but also stealing on turn 3, but also with some push stats with a 6 power.
Yeah, we've seen a 3 mana 5/5 steal in the past, but normally they're kind of smaller than that. The dark identity is kind of moving to steal your stuff kind of identity. We saw that with Grave Robber getting some cards the also steal later on in this, and even the crafted hero is all about stealing. So this is another tool for them. Very very dark feeling and very you know scavengy. Let me get that kind of feel.
Yeah, and we also have the Raised Dead vibes going on in Dark, so maybe we're getting some double steals in the future where we're recycling our squeaks. Very, very thematically, looks already like kind of like it's patched together. Maybe it was dead at one point, and that is a rare. All right, next up we are looking at the Onyx, and this is a 5 mana diamond, 9/9 with cruelty. This is an angel, looks beautiful and feels very splashy. What's going on with Onyx?
Yeah, this is part of the angel cycle, which are always powerful 9/9s for either 4 or 5 mana. And this has the cruelty mechanic, which is going to get you a card no matter what. Maybe it's a bad card, maybe it's the best card. Just depends on how you time it. But this is very efficiently rated. 5 mana 9/9 that gets rid of one of their champions. It's gonna be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we talked about before, with the eggs back around, this is a perfect one to try to cheat out. All right, next up, we are looking at another diamond here. Very cool card. I love the art. This is the Butcher. And we talked about double cruelty. Well, guess what? Sometimes you don't even need to use a Raised Dead. You just get it on a single beater. And this is a 7 mana 10/10 with cruelty, cruelty. Obviously, this would be a great Raised Dead target. Then you get the quadruple cruelty. But what's going on with this card?
Yes, probably be the top end of a lot of dark constructed decks here. 7 mana 10/10, pretty decent stats, but you want to get a lot of value out of a 7 mana card. And yeah, they have to sacrifice their two uh, weakest champions. And the second cruelty is actually quite a lot better than the first, oftentimes, because they could have like a 1/1 and like a 5/5, and the second cruelty is getting that 5/5. So it gets past like them trying to play around an effect like cruelty by keeping one small champion around, kind of just circumvents that altogether. But of course, they could have a whole bunch of small things, and the butcher won't do too much. But hopefully, that's not your case.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, even if they do have some small things, I mean, double cruelty is always going to be good, even if it's just killing off little guys. What's interesting too is that we've seen some of the new cards that are in this set that have crafted abilities like Elemental Guard and things like this, and this will fade effects that prevent it from being targeted because it just chooses them based on the conditions. All right,
Yep.
and that is a diamond. Next up, we see Rain, one of our pro players, a throwback or a nod to one of the greatest of all time. He is not a goat; he is a llama. But it is still very fitting that Rain has a card, and this is 3 mana 4/4 Raised Dead 6. What's going on with Rain here?
Yeah, we're just bringing back Raised Dead on a common card. We've seen common Raised Dead cards in the past, but they cost a little bit more. This is kind of replacing Gen 3 Raised Dead cards like Vile Moth. Just like different kind of feeling, different rarity, and different kind of evolution chain going on too.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a common, like you said, and you know, the Vile Moth had a really important complement to it, which is that Demothra, the next part of the evolution line, and with Rain, we have another really powerful, maybe even more powerful ability with this is Raina, and this is a 5 mana 7/7 who has the double mechanic, Raise Dead, but also Soul Reaper.
Yeah, a little bit cheaper than that upgraded Demothra, but yeah, it's only 5 mana instead of 6. The stats are a little bit lower, 7/7 instead of 9/9, but it comes with that Soul Reaper. So, whenever something dies, it gets +1/+1. And it's also easier to cast on its own, so you don't have to rely so much on the evolution. But both cards are good, and I think Rain is going to be equally as great as the Mothra was from Valmoth.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing with all of this, raise dead, this, ability to tax your own life total. That's where the importance of some of these other effects, like you had already mentioned, leech come in and the ability to maybe replenish that life total a little bit as you're digging into the well to try to get that last value. All right, and next up, we are going to take a look at Kufu. This is the raised dead version of Fuku. That's where the name comes from. And this is a nod to that. This one checks in as a mythic. This is a 2 mana 4/4 with Quantum Shift and Shrouded. What's going on here with Kufu?
Yeah, so this is the beginning of our crafted set for dark. There's 8 crafted cards, and this is one of the bigger ones. A 2 mana 4/4 with Quantum Shift. So you take their smallest champion and you give them a Kufu. Similar to Cruelty, you want to kind of sculpt the board state where you're taking their best thing. But this isn't quite as good as Fuku was because, well, one, it costs one more, and it has Shrouded, so you're giving them a 4/4 that you can't immediately attack. It's going to sit there until they decide to attack. But also, if they don't have any board at all, you can just play it as a 2 mana 4/4 with Shrouded because the Quantum Shift just won't happen. So that could be your thing. You could play a 2 mana 4/4, but most of the time you're probably just trying to snipe their big large champion after uh, whittling down their state where they only have just that one big thing. Would be the plan here with Kufu.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is only one more mana than Fuku, but also it is twice as much mana, right? And
Yeah.
and it also really seems to work well with cards like Cruelty, because yeah, you're able to kill off the meager, the the unworthy, and then steal the last one. So that's a nice way to sort of play into the effects of dark, being able to use subtle mechanics to manipulate the board state in your favor. And we see that with the mythic Khufu. Really cool to see that one in this set. Next up, we see Grave Spade. This is 2 mana, 3/4 with Grave Robber, checking in as a crafted rare. And yeah, where does this one fit in, and what is Grave Robber?
Yeah, Grave Robber takes the top card of their library, or not, the top card of their graveyard, and puts it into your hand. So if you kill something immediately, you know that you can Grave Robber it and yoink it right to your hand. Take yeah, some of their best cards, some of the cards they've been using against you, turn them against each other, and comes at a pretty good rate. A 2 mana 3/4 that gains you a card. May not be a card that works has synergy in your deck, but given the flexibility that you can time it whenever you want, so you can probably get something that you can use.
Yeah, very cool. Love this ability, and it feels like it's the perfect card for one of the builds. Maybe not every single build that Dark is going down, but there's one deck that is really looking for this Grave Robber effect. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this plays in. Very cool mechanic. All right, next up. Oh, and that's a rare too. So next up we see Splinter Beak here. This is cool. Very 1 mana. So I always pay attention to these 1 mana cards. They are sometimes so format defining. Checking in as a crafted mythic, and it's a 1 mana 1/5 with Curse 1, and it has Shy. Where's Splinter Beak slotting into the format?
I like this card quite a lot. It's one of my favorite cards in the set. So 1 mana 1/5 curse one, so it shrinks something by just a very small amount. Maybe it won't be effective. Maybe it will be. It's very good to pick off things for when you're trying to uh, do a cruelty card or the Kufu with the quantum shift. And then the shy mechanic is whenever it takes damage but doesn't die, it gets returned to your hand. So you get to play it over and over if it's happening. But if somebody attacks with a 5/5, you can just knock off the splinter beak. But it's probably done a lot because it only costs 1 mana, so you're not committing a ton into it. Then maybe it attacked a 2/2 or something and came back, and then you can cast it again. A lot of repeating effects here, and can get kind of annoying.
Yeah, we are breaking down these by element, so we're not really doing too much cross element analysis here, but it does seem like the dark fits so nicely with what red is doing. Not only are they both benefiting from that conjure ability, but also now when you have a card like Splinterbeak, you're really able to get that additional value off of wildfires and other things like that, and play in nicely with the, as you mentioned, the cruelty and the Khufu strategies. All right, let's take a look at our next card. This one's a diamond. This is Ferris, and it is a 2 mana 6/3 Raise Dead, and Raise Dead is 6. Now, yeah, this is a really powerful effect. What's going on with Ferris here?
Yeah, it's the first 2 mana raised dead card in champions. We saw a 1 mana one in Lily and Necrox, but that had a huge raised dead price of 18 lives. This one only has six as its price. But yeah, the stats are pretty good for a 2 mana card. May not be the card you want to cast on turn two because you want to get that raise that value, but you can cast on turn two as a 6/3 and stuff. the worst thing in the world, but you're probably going to save it until something nice dies, and you can bring it back along with having a 6/3 for only 2 mana.
Yeah, and again, thinking about how these pair with other elements too, we've seen that equality is back, and it's not only back in the nature set. So maybe, getting these early raised deads where you're paying a life tax, maybe you're able to, complement that with some equality just to level the playing field. All right, next up we see the Botween. And the Botween is a 7 mana 7/2 with Shrouded. Very cool card. This one checking in as a crafted rare. What's the deal with Botween?
I mean, it's basically 2 mana deals 7 damage. It's going to be really hard to get rid of. They can't attack it before you can attack. So if you're in the market for just a raw 7 damage that's really hard to interact with, then you can do that. And also because it's shrouded, it evolves pretty well since it's hard to for them to remove.
Absolutely. And that is the evolution of Botween is Boyond. Boyond is 6 mana 8/8. This has a double mechanic as a crafted rare with cruelty and shrouded. So also able to pick off something of the opponent's, but hangs around as a big beater as well, just like Botween did.
Yeah, this is kind of a mixed card. It kind of wants a beat down for 8. Can't really target it. If you're really loading up on your deck with cruelty, I mean, every cruelty kind of works with itself because you're kind of whittling them down to the until cruelty actually gets their best champion. So, um, yeah, this is a little bit extra for people that are going hard into cruelty and evolves very well since the previous version has shrouded as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that one is a crafted rare as well. Next up, we see part of a cycle of the core set 2025. This is a crafted mythic. This is the 5 mana 5/5 with Otherworldly Catacombs. Talk about what's going on with this card.
Yeah, it's a cycle of 5 mana 5/5s with otherworldly. They're all mythic. They're all crafted. Just giving otherworldly a look on what it kind of means to be an otherworldly card. This one can attack. Previously in other sets, they all had 0 power. Now you can get your beat on with your otherworldly card as well, and also punish them for attacking your otherworldly card.
Yeah, very thematic too. Love the name of this card. The Catacombs, the art, very iconic as well. That one looking really cool to me. All right, and then we are going to round things off here with Incomplete. The Tomb Raider. This is 6 mana, 9/9. It has Steel and Grave Robber, checking in as a crafted mythic. And yeah, what is Incomplete and what's going on with this card in the format?
Yeah, we're completing our set review of Dark here with the card Incomplete. This is going to be a hero crafted card. Yeah, for 6 mana 9/9 you get 2 cards, so 2 cards of value. It also is a hero that if you're playing as a hero, you will drain them or leech them for 2 life per card you add to your hand that didn't start in your deck. So you take a card from top of their library or top of their graveyard, or even it will even work with effects like harvest if you manage to put harvest cards in your incomplete deck. But it seems like a pretty sweet champion, a pretty sweet hero to like build your deck around. This is a spot for all your graveyard cards, your gray spades and your squeaks. Just put them all in there, and you might even can win a game without even attacking the opponent really directly. It's kind of another way to punish them on top of you know beating them up with their own cards. You're beating them with their own cards and draining them at the same time.
Yeah, very cool. And yeah, I love that Grave Robber. It's probably one of my favorite mechanics in this dark element. That takes us to the conclusion of our dark element review. What were your thoughts on the set, the element in general, how it positions, as well as what is your standout card from this element?
The most iconic card is probably Khufu. This says bringing back Quantum Shift, bringing back probably the strongest card ever printed in Fuku, but in a different and in a little bit more balanced way. It's not normal like it was before. Now you can only play it if you're playing dark. But as a whole, I think dark is kind of positioned to be uh, like a control deck a little bit. With the cruelty cards, with the life gain you can get, with the card advantage you get from conjure and grave robber and steal. Um, I mean, dark is a kind of a color that can do a lot of little things, but I think as a whole, it'll all add up to be kind of something that can deal with a lot of different situations. I can pick off the small stuff with curse, big stuff with cruelty. It just kind of has a ton of tools and is one of my favorite elements. Maybe my favorite element, and just in champions in general.
Yeah, really cool to see, the synergy among these all these various different cards. They really play nicely with each other. All right. Well, I want to thank our viewer audience for tuning in for this set review of the Dark Element Core Set 2025, launching March 11th, 2025, and encourage you to like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Join us in the Discord. I'm your host, Brett Banfi, aka Manifestable, joined by Tom the Boss Ross. We want to thank you as always for being a champion, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
All right, y'all.